Hi guys, this is Dr. Scott, and today I have a special guest for you. Charity is coming on here, and she is the founder of Freedom Brigades. She also is hooked up with those nationwide. And when I met her, I was down in Oklahoma City, like the second or third time I've been in the Capitol, and we were talking. I met her, and we were talking about the idea of how can people get involved in just different ways, and it was so unique. I thought, guys, this is something that how you can actually get involved. So how you doing today?
Hey, Dr. Scott, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
All right, no problem. So how was did you get to see anything of the inauguration?
So, kind of, sort of. So I was elected as national committee woman for
Right.
Oklahoma in the RNC. And so we were supposed to get these seats sitting behind Trump outside. I was very excited. And when they
You
had
mean
the
like the crowd, like in the kind of choir looking area that would normally sit?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So I don't think I would have been seen, but I would have been at least not out with the millions of people in front because
Right.
I don't like crowds. I would have been one of the thousands behind you, right?
Yeah.
Just like a small blip in the screen. Um, but they moved it inside for the weather, and the weather was freezing.
Right.
I don't, have any intel on that, but I personally believe they did that for security reasons. Uh,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But so I had the choice. I could have gotten into the Capital One arena and sat with the RNC there, or they also offered a watch party from the warmth of our hotel.
Oh,
And they had a
really?
nice, so we did it from there. You know, what was really beautiful about that was I don't
You
think
mean for
really
the inauguration part or for the Capital One part?
well, during the inauguration, we did
Oh,
not go to the Capitol. I could have. I chose to watch the inauguration with the RNC from a private watch party. And, I don't think it mattered where you were watching that from.
right. Right.
The magic was just there. It was a spiritual thing for the entire country. We were winning. And, it was just beautiful. I absolutely loved the verbal assault. He took out this verbal AK-47, turned around and went bam, 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 you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
I
it
mean,
was
Joe Biden's sitting there like looking like a whipped puppy, you
Oh, I
know?
know, and if you heard later on that day, he commented that he wanted to say more,
Yeah.
but his people wouldn't let him, and I'm like, I love it. He's our guy, right? He's beautiful.
Right.
It was so yeah, I got to be there for that, and being in DC, it was very, very, very cold. I went to the Liberty Ball that night, and, it was just guys, it was freezing. I mean, it was a 3-degree
Yeah.
wind chill in a
Right.
ball gown, it was awful. But it was neat to see Trump and just to feel the positive in the air, you know? It was interesting being in DC. I was there for the week previous to that because we had RNC meetings, and the spiritual tension, on both sides, right? Negative, and positive
Right.
was impressive because it was on high alert. It was very interesting.
Did you
Um,
see like weren't there some protesters,
yes.
the crazy libs protesting there, or was it really tiny or
No, it
what?
was huge. So, I had to do a couple things downtown, and so when we were driving through that, you could see them. They were going, it seemed like for miles, right? And there was so many of them, and they were purposely trying to instigate us. They had atrocious pictures of Trump and saying hateful things, and there's a version of me, Scott, that is deep, deep down that it touched, right? I was about this 20-year-old invincible Charity
Mhm.
came out and was like, I wanted to go and engage.
Oh,
And
sure.
my husband's like, "You're staying in the car." He's like, "We have got this appointment." And I'm like, "Okay, but then I wanna come back here." He's like, "Yeah, I am not bringing you back here."
Yeah,
Uh,
no way.
I'm like, "I'll just take video." He's like, "No, you won't." No.
No, yeah, see, it's easy to get triggered on that stuff too. I mean, I've said this before, the child trafficking stuff,
Mhm.
um, the J6 kinds of issues, and
Yeah,
the stuff with Fauci and the dogs. y- I just have zero mercy,
I'm with you on
and
that.
I'm super ugly on that stuff, and
It's
especially with how much they've treated the J6 people too. So,
Well, I was just talking to some on my show earlier today. The Department of Defense spent the last several weeks putting our tax dollars to work by moving the J6ers as far away from their
Yep.
families as they could, so when
Yep.
these pardons were coming, it would be a hardship. Gratefully, the Patriots have come together and had, people waiting at these different facilities and helped them get home, took them out to dinner, or helping them get where they need to, but that's because the Patriots are coming together. It's this nameless, faceless movement that we're seeing,
Yep.
and, they are the ones that took care of what the regime tried to make a hardship. It was disgusting, and all of the pardons are disgusting, and they're very telling.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
and, you can't pardon somebody that hasn't been charged with a crime, so that's not gonna hold up.
Right.
Very interesting. I do love, how, like, Oklahoma is suing Fauci right now because pardons don't hold up against state charges.
Right.
And we need to see more of that. Ryan Walters, our superintendent of instruction, is suing Mayorkas over the cost of $474 million over the cost
Good.
of the illegal immigrants to the schools. We need
Good.
to see more of that.
Well, and I think that's coming. I mean, I think
I agree.
I believe there's a significant reveal coming up, and when that does, there's nowhere to hide. And no matter where anyone believes on that kind of situation, you can't keep truth down. And
Right.
when it starts to pop up, I've always said it's kind of like looking at a lake and the fish are dead and they start popping up on the surface of the lake and there's just no way to get around them after a while. And
That's
that's
right.
what's coming.
Absolutely is what's coming. It's a God movement. It's a spiritual thing, and the truth always comes out. And, I believe if you are on earth right now and you are awake, it is for a purpose. It is for such a time as this, and you
Mhm.
must be doing something.
I love this woman, guys. You got to be focusing in here, and she's got her website out there, freedombrigades.com, and I know you can sign up in there. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it's
Okay.
free.
And definitely, I want you to do that. So I got plenty of people are going to sign up today. I expect to have at least 1,000 people sign up for that. I'm pushing you guys. I'm not getting anything for it. She's not getting anything
Right.
for it. But you guys are going to plug in because that's one of the areas we're going to talk about too. But I still wanted to finish where we were. So
Okay.
so the pre-inauguration, you had the negative positive energy kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Did you feel like it like turned afterward as you were leaving DC, or what'd you feel like?
You know, I do feel like the positive overcame the negative, and
Mm.
I saw much more of that. I still had, like, the Uber driver that took us to, the Liberty Ball, had a guy on the radio that was making fun of all the newcomers and saying, "Where should we send them?" "Well, let's send them to hell," and "Where are all these people coming to town? Where do you—" And the Uber driver's laughing, and he knows where he's taking us, and it's
Right.
like, well, he obviously doesn't care about his tip. He was polite. But he was, it was like there was still this you could tell there were people that were still very disheartened. What I found very interesting is as I was watching the protesters and listening to people, these people have been brainwashed. They
Right.
want the same things we want. They
Sure.
want freedom. They want transparency. They have been lied to about who will provide that and what that means. And I do think there are global powers that are purposely trying to make sure there's this huge divide in the population because that suits them. And if we will just have conversations and reach across the aisle, we're going to get a lot done.
Well, my gosh, that was literally the conversation I have with an outgoing employee. And she has a very left-leaning viewpoint. She goes, "Well, I know I live in Oklahoma that is like very, very conservative on that." And she just was like, doesn't want to hear it. And I get it. I've seen it many, many times. I mean, you have a choice to wake up or not,
Right.
but there's a point in time where this is really important. And I kind of said to her, I said, listen, we're both Americans. We shouldn't be on the other side of the aisle necessarily. It's those idiots, it's pointing toward DC area.
Right.
Those are the ones that are our enemy. And she
Right.
was like, look at me kind of funny, like, huh, I didn't expect you to say that. I said, it's what we do here. You can have your own viewpoint. But I said, like you don't, as a big football fan, I don't walk up to a table with a whole bunch of Pittsburgh Steeler fans and say you're idiots for loving your Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean,
Right.
you'd never do that, but we do that when it comes to political issues.
Right. Well, and it's because they purposely they pit us against each other. It's even the stuff that we get riled up about, even as conservatives, we get riled up about stuff that we're following a narrative. Yeah, the school loans are a perfect example. Yes, if you took out a loan, you need to pay it back, and that is your responsibility. Why were we so much more upset about that than we were the money that was being given to Ukraine and given to
Sure,
the illegal immigrants? We
sure.
followed a narrative and didn't even realize it. Americans wanting to get an education should have been on the bottom of the list of things we were upset about. And we bought right into it. And there's a lot of that goes on that we can't see because we're being programmed.
Right. I mean, that's the kind of idea that guys, and we do need to reach across the aisle as the truth really starts coming out and people start to really wake up. We need to be more. And there's a level of magnanimity. Oh, that's a real hard word to say. Magnanimous that we can be, and if we can have that kind of level toward one another, but the reality is humility, because we all have come to a place where where we're like we were just right there too, whatever years ago it was, and we need to help these people kind of come back because guess what? We're all Americans and we care about our communities.
Well, and Trump is going to help even the people that hate him. If he gets rid of the IRS and minimizes their impact, they're going to be helped. He's going to help in so many different ways. He's going to secure the borders and do everything that he's promised is going to help even them. And I hope that they're able to see that when they're able to go to the grocery store and actually afford groceries without credit and be able to keep more of the money they make. I mean, do you realize that we're slaves? I
Yep.
mean, when the more you don't get to keep the majority of your money, when over half of it, by the time you taxed are taxed all the different ways you're taxed, way over half of your money goes to the government. We are slaves.
Right.
And I do believe Trump's going to put an end to a lot of that.
Absolutely. It's coming. It is coming with that too. So I wanted to share with you a perception that I had when I was at the Doge meeting. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know. I know they were talking about a lot of wind, farm issues, and I sometimes when I'm in a group, I don't know anyone there. Tend to like stand toward the back.
Mhm.
One of the things that I noticed is people were kind of getting whipped up back with the speakers. Is I looked up, one or two levels, and I saw definitely who were the representatives, and they were looking down at this, going, "What is going on?"
Mhm.
And it seemed like they hadn't experienced anything like this, or very
Sure.
rarely if they had in the past. Did you notice that stuff too?
Well, absolutely. And actually, the representatives and the senators are reaching out to us
Oh,
because they are understanding, especially in the primaries. I don't know if you realized in the primaries, the grassroots we picked out as a whole. So we've started communicating as we've taken back the Republican Party, and we're trying to put patriots into office and take it from the establishment and the establishment tendencies. Right now, the grassroots have the majority of every committee in the Republican Party. And we are constantly in contact, and we've done it through the brigades. And so we picked 10 targets that we wanted to take out in the primaries, and people traveled to go make sure these targets were taken out. And we took out 9 of them, which were outspent by millions. We have changed the game. And the legislators have taken note. They don't know what to do with this. And it's not one or two people. It's like I talked about before. This is a nameless, faceless movement. This is the patriots saying we've had enough. This political game does not work for us. It doesn't benefit us. It only benefits the elite. And so we're getting involved. Actually, the Republic says you work for us, and we're going to make sure you understand that.
wow, that's a fascinating point. So you kind of, with that, you kind of talked a little bit about what you guys do. Can you talk a little bit more about, why the brigades are helpful and how, people actually get involved in that way, or what do they do when they?
So Yeah. So the brigades are in a community, and a community is defined by the people. It is not something that is micromanaged. And so your community could be your precinct, your community could be your county, your community. Some brigades are run through churches, but they get at least one person that goes to every meeting. If there's a government meeting, you have a city council brigade, a county commissioner brigade, a library brigade, city council brigade. If there is a government meeting, you have at least one representative that shows up. And we're at war, Scott. We must, if you decide to take this post, you man your post because you show up to every meeting. The first thing they do is they say, "Why are you here? Who are you with?" They're used to us being asleep, and that's atrocious that they're used to us being asleep. They report back. They take notes at the meeting, and then they report back to their brigade of what is going on in their community, and that is how
Wait,
we.
how do they report? I mean, you said that before, but how do they, so like if Jody goes to, one of the meetings, maybe it's a city, a city council meeting kind of thing.
Mhm.
What does she do when she comes back and she
Okay,
reports?
so
What does that mean?
I would ask Jody to go to the city council and to take notes
Okay.
because you'll find things that don't make sense in this meeting that will make sense 2 meetings from now.
Oh,
You find money they've stolen that don't put out there, but if you're taking notes and paying attention, you catch it. Um, and then we just ask that so then the brigades have a monthly meeting and they partner with other organizations. Sometimes there are brigades that are their own organization. I just ask that they meet. I don't care who implements the structure.
right.
And they come back and meet once a month and they say, okay, city council brigade, what's the city council up to? Okay, county commissioner brigade, what's our county commissioners up to? Okay, library brigade, what's the library? And they give a report on what is happening at every meeting to the group of patriots that are coming together.
So they're just going, right? And they're
Yeah,
sitting among the people with that too. Do they speak up at all, or do they just sit there and
that's up to them.
okay.
So, my favorite brigade story is when the brigades were new. They started in Veneta, Oklahoma, where I'm at, and we had the guy who was the mayor of Veneta was going to put in somebody that was a family friend as the police chief.
Jeez.
And he wasn't in line to be the police chief. Well, so they called this emergency meeting and they sent out the agenda 24 hours ahead of time, like they're
Sure.
supposed to. 3 hours before the meeting, he amends the agenda to include this item.
Of course.
And so the city council brigade lets me know what's happening. And I send a text out to the Republican Party who runs the brigade in this area. And I said, I need you to be there if you can be there, guys. With a 3 hour notice, we had standing room only. And guess who was never the police chief?
Of
So
course.
this is the kind of thing that we do. This is so what you saw at the Capitol was brigades out of McIntosh County that partnered up with Pittsburgh County, and we had already been fighting the wind farms in Craig County. And so that's kind of the second layer of the brigades is so they report back and then they take back their community. And we have people that are on the front lines. I have made some friends with some national key figures. Some of them did military strategy, and we have called them from time to time and said, "Hey, we don't know what to do. What do you suggest?"
Right.
And so we have reinforcements. But then the communities among the state talk to each other, and we have a lead in each state, and we communicate so we can collaborate and strategize together. Sometimes what you think is just your school board is happening across the state, and we didn't know that because we weren't communicating. And then we have one state leader who talks to the other state leaders. Right now, the brigades are in 19 states. I look
Hmm.
for that to grow, but they have been national for 2 years. So, and so really it is a bottom up. It's a God thing, right? Like I would have totally screwed it up. It was God said, keep it simple, stupid. This is going to be
Right.
real simple. You send them to a meeting, they report back, and then you facilitate them communicating with each other.
Right.
It's free. It doesn't, it's just what it costs is your time. Right now, the cost of freedom is your time. If you join a brigade that's already going, it's 4 hours a month of your time. That includes travel. That's 2 hours to the meeting you agree to go to, and then 2 hours back to report to your brigade. And you
Wow.
can take back your community with 4 hours a month. And it's working. That's how we're going to save the republic is by taking back our individual communities. You saw
But
during
how does
COVID Your
But how
local
does that
guys
do
have
that
more say.
though? You
Go
you
ahead.
so, I mean, I want you to back up there for a half second 'cause I'm, just right
Absolutely.
in there. Like, so someone goes that 4 hours, they take notes, but what's the reaction of, of the city council? Because you kinda told me about it, or the school board or whatever that is.
Sure.
Um,
S
how
so
does that work?
they don't care for us coming
Okay.
because they preferred to go unchecked. That's what they've
Right.
been doing for decades. However, you will find patriots there that will call us that are on the school boards, and they'll say, "Hey, I'm so glad you guys are there," and they will actually talk to us, and I never put their name out there, right? They will talk to us
Sure.
and work with us behind the scenes so that they're not outed on the board they're on. And the beautiful part of this, so these brigades started in 2020 in Veneta. Um, the beautiful part is as people are sitting in these meetings, they are no longer intimidated by the role. And so patriots are running for office. And we are plugging these places with patriots, and they feel empowered because they've been going to the meeting for a year now. And they're like, if that idiot can do it, I know I can do it. I
Oh,
can do
yeah.
this. And before it would have never even been on their radar to run for school board or run for city council. It's been a beautiful side effect I didn't see coming, which I should have. But we are putting patriots into office, and that's the next level. But you don't have to run for office to be in the brigade. We
Right.
see what they're doing, and then we apply pressure when needed. Just like when the county commissioners come in and they say, we're going to bring in these turbines, these wind turbines, we're like, no, and we push back. And that's where we know we need to stop them. The brigades in Rogers County completely stopped smart cities from coming in with their county commissioners. It was a beautiful story. They went in and educated them. They had no idea what it was, and we're like, look, the UN is in bed with with your community. People don't believe it, but they are. And if this is what they've done is they've taken this slavery plan, it's for a smart city, and they wrapped it in a beautiful bow and put colorful language in and made
Right.
it sound like something good, but it's not. And the county commissioner said, okay, so they actually had like 100 people show up to that meeting when they realized this was happening. And so the county commissioners agreed to table it and started meeting with our brigades off the county. And we started educating them on what was happening. And so they started taking stuff out of the plan. Dean Sharp leads those brigades, and it's a beautiful story. Finally, the county commissioner said, "Look, there's nothing in this plan now. We've taken everything out." Dean said, "It's a perfect time to pass it. Then let's pass it." And so they
Yeah,
passed it.
really.
But they were successful in stopping that from coming into Claremore, Oklahoma. Had they not been there, they would have never even known it was coming in, and it would have just been a done deal. It's about helping the patriots show up so we know where to fight and when to fight.
Wow, that's the kind of stuff I tell you guys, what most people don't realize, we think that we're over there talking to DC, with the senators and the congressmen and women and president. But the reality is the cabal gets right underneath your skin, right on the school boards, right as the small mayor of a tiny town. And you're going, how can they really care about that? It's exactly what they care about.
It is exactly what they care about. There was a group that came in, probably about 3 years ago, and they actually targeted the small towns in Northeast Oklahoma. And so I couldn't get in because I wasn't a city official, but I did have a friend that was. And so I sent a spy in, and I got their 300-page the presentation they gave.
Right.
And they unapologetically, it was the tribes, the UN, and the UN put their symbol on it, and it was Joy Hoffmeister at the time. And they were purposely starting to indoctrinate these small towns to the thinking of the smart city and that whole, guys, that's slavery. Look at the 2030 agenda. You can find it on the Freedom Brigade's website. But that is 1984 on steroids.
Sure.
And so, but they are very purposeful in it. And at the time, that mayor I was talking to you about, he was the Cherokee Nation, the chief's dad. And so
Hmm.
right away, started making powerful enemies. It's been a lot of fun, but your enemies say who you are. You can't worry about who does and doesn't like you. I always tell people, go to the very last day of your life and look back. What
Right.
you wish you would have done, do that. You can still do it. Do that. Our republic is at stake, our freedom is at stake, our way of life is at stake, and God has put us here for such a time as this, and it's not to lay down.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. I tell people all the time, I get 300 to 500 messages a week. A quarter of them hate my guts because I won't say the things they want me to say. And it's not like I even take any marketing dollars. I don't put any marketing dollars ever on here. And yet they're freaking out because I won't say the right words. But the attack also comes through that kind of thing, but also comes around it. And they just cannot stand people like us because we're not controllable in
That's right.
their minds.
Well, yeah, here's the deal is, you have to love God more than you love money, more than you love power. And there are not very many out there like that. I give at least an hour every day. I start my day in the word and in prayer. And I understand that's imperative for where the Lord has put me so that I don't become a politician.
Right.
And you have to have strong leaders with that strong spiritual core because, guys, this is a spiritual battle. And if you can be bought, you will be bought. And so, we see it all the time. It's people, these heroes that ended up compromising. It's because there was a niche in the armor. And so,
Right.
as we move forward in this, it is just imperative that we're spending that time with the Lord because every single human being is susceptible to that.
Well, and I mean, guys, here's one thing. We're going to do this at the end, but you guys need to be praying for Charity because I swear to you, if they could get involved with her and dump enough money on her that she'd go, okay, fine, that would be something really awesome, and then starts just to gently change the message.
Right.
That's all it takes for that stuff.
Yeah. And I now, you don't know me, Scott, but my mother, so I was a teenager, I was a little rebellious, right? And I remember I would even purposely, like, I would argue with the pastor during sermon. Like, I was one of, like, always been kind of bold. And my mom's like, thank God there was a reason for your tenacity because that was tough, man. Thank God there was a reason. But we have to be bold and we cannot compromise in any way. And we see it a lot. And, I regret that I haven't had the chance to watch your show, and I hope I don't offend you, but the church has, encouraged compromise, and that is
Yep, we have.
why so many don't see truth so clearly, because when you compromise here, it takes more than you mean for it to take, and you end up compromising so much more than you ever meant, and now you can't even recognize truth. We saw it during COVID. You
Mhm.
don't even recognize it because you compromise this back over here. And we've got to get back to the way the Lord said to do things. There's a reason for it, and it's for our good.
Well, it's exactly what I mean, I was at a group meeting and, we were talking about things and they were asking me what I did. And most people are very confused by what I do. And so I was talking a little bit about some of that stuff. And I was telling them how many thousands of fake Dr. Scotts are out there trying to sell a product with my name, my face, my information, and it is so maddening. No one in the FBI will ever even touch a case like this. And there are dozens and dozens of my friends that are stealing. I mean, having the same thing stolen of them. I mean, when you have your identity stolen over again, and you're being trashed because something you didn't do is
Mhm.
incredibly difficult. And so I was talking about that with these group of guys, and they had no idea what January 6th was about. And they were like, well, they were violent. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are believers and you don't know what's happening around you. And I understand a lot of people want to want to duck under the radar because they don't want to have the headlights faced in their life. But you know what? When you get called and start doing it, you start realizing there's no other way to live.
Absolutely. Um, it's really sad the lack of discernment I see There is a remnant that is rising and is not out of the organized church. As a matter of fact, I do believe that the remnant will be most persecuted by the church in the last days, and that's okay with me.
Yep.
Um, we saw it, and you know, you need to be turning off the TV. I can always tell how much TV somebody's watching when I talk to them because they turn the critical thinking off. COVID was a perfect example of that. It never made sense, you know? I keep joking, I had this stomach flu a couple weeks ago, and I was joking with my producer that because she lives in Nevada, and she was sick before me, and I'm like, "Well, you got me the bird flu, except, well, we had symptoms, so it couldn't have been the bird flu." I mean, how insane is this that they keep trying to sell us this, there's a pandemic with no symptoms? Like, guys,
Yeah.
turn it off. It's
Asymptomatic things.
brainwashing you.
Yeah, as a medical provider, I mean, I sit there with asymptomatic things, and there is zero understanding of asymptomatic. Every single medical diagnosis comes with symptoms. And to
Yeah,
say that there's no symptoms, but you're still sick is the biggest joke. And you guys don't understand, it's not just a lie, it's a joke that the medical industry put on people who don't know anything about it. But when I actually have to input into insurance forms, I have to show a diagnosis, and then I have to show what particular things that I ran, the tests that I ran, and they have to lead toward that diagnosis, or they won't pay. They will find a reason not to pay for that kind of stuff. And if there's no end diagnosis that we come up with and reasons for that, which symptomatology is exactly how you get there, it's the dumbest thing in the world. And
exactly.
that's the fakery that we're seeing everywhere around us on a lot of levels with that.
It is, and, the joke is they're making fun of the American people.
Right.
It's disgusting, and I look forward to, Fauci going down. I These pardons will not stand. He deserves it. What he did mentally to the country, to the elderly, especially to the youngest children, it's just disgusting, and I feel bad even for the people, that are healthy adults like
Sure.
myself and you that bought into that, because they were, you know, I was driving an hour to go to a doctor that wouldn't make me wear a mask, right? Like,
Right.
the only time I would wear a mask is if I was on a plane or going through TSA, and I wouldn't wear it through the airport, and they kept, like, doing this stuff on the airport over the speaker, "You must put your mask on." I'm ignoring them, people are giving me dirty looks. And I would only even get on a plane if I was going to an event, to tell people the truth. But without that, that was, you know, I didn't participate, and it actually made my life very hard to refuse to participate in that. It's just insane.
Well, so as we kind of wrap up here, with this, so people can go sign up. Then
Yes.
we can find ways for them to plug in. Is there someone that kind of contacts them and says, "Okay, this is the way and area," or how does that work when they
Absolutely. So
sign in?
it'll be myself or a couple people because, the Freedom Brigades are free. Nobody is trying to make money. I remember when I went to my friend Clay and I said, "Hey, I need you to help me make a logo. This is becoming a thing that I need to do more with." He said, "How do you make money?" I said, I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to save the country." He said, "Oh, okay, let's get it done." And it's not, it's free, and so somebody will be contacting you, and we will help you get it set up in your area. We will either connect you with the brigade in your area, or we will meet with you by Zoom and help you get it started in yours. You can get a brigade started with 3 to 5 people, and you can start taking back your community. It will grow. When I first took over the GOP in Oklahoma, in Veneta, we had 3 to 5 people because it's a very small county. And then for a while, we had an average of 60. It's dropped off a little bit. Right now, the average is about 40. That's still a huge increase from what it was because when you start making a difference, people come to find you and say, "How can I help? I want to do something too." Everybody knows our house is on fire. They just don't know what to do about it.
Right.
And they're tired of the social clubs that sit around and talk about it. And so this is actually an action plan that you can do to take back your community.
Well, guys, that is exactly the kind of stuff. I mean, when Sherry and I first were talking about this, I was thinking about a guy who had a very, deep drawl, and he was probably near Houston area, but a little smaller town there. And he just kept, bashing the conversation about the mayor, not in a bad way, but he's just like, this guy is clueless, and he does this. And I'm like, have you ever thought about being the mayor? Oh, I couldn't be the mayor. Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
And I just saw this as a real opportunity, guys, for you to be able to plug in. And this is an easy way to do this. It just takes time and your energy. And by the way, you don't need to watch the idiot TV, and you can replace that time with something over here.
Right.
And say, you know what? I feel good about this, because you can make a difference. They are terrified. Satan is so terrified of you because you just step up and say no. It's incredibly difficult for him. I've learned a long time ago, when Satan tries to tell me about my sin, I just tell him I'm the bride of Christ, and my end position is the temple of God. And he kind of looks at me like, I don't know what to say to that.
Right.
And that's exactly right. And the reality that comes out is just, I don't know what to say. So I just want you guys to close your eyes for a minute and pray over Charity. And I just thank you, Lord God, that the people are listening right now, that they are going to find her. They're going to plug into the community. They are going to make a difference. We're going to have people that will become on school boards, will become mayors, will become state senators, whatever that is. But they will find ways just to even be retired and spend 4 hours a month to plug in their community. And I just thank you, Lord God. I ask for a legion of angels to be around her, to protect her in all ways, shapes, and form. And we just put the blood of Jesus over Freedom Brigades right now. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Bless you guys.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Just if you could like and subscribe, it really helps me out. Thanks so much.